My brother asked me to watch his kids for a weekend while he and his wife attended a couple's retreat and promised to pay me. But when I showed up, he handed me a list of rules longer than my arm and informed me the payment would be coming out of love I have for my niece and nephew. I'm 26 and my brother, Derek, is 34. We were never the kind of siblings who finished each other's sentences or had inside jokes. We existed in the same house growing up, but always felt like we were living in parallel universes. He was a star athlete, the one my parents poured their energy and savings into, while I was a quiet, bookish one who was expected to figure things out on my own. We tolerated each other for the sake of family gatherings, but a genuine, warm sibling bond? That was a concept I'd only ever read about in books or seen in movies that made me feel vaguely hollow. So, when he called me 3 weeks ago, I was genuinely surprised. His voice on the other end of the line was a strange mix of harried and overly friendly, a tone he usually reserved for networking events or asking for favors. "Hey, little sis," he'd started, the term of endearment sounding foreign and slightly forced on his tongue. "How's life in the world of spreadsheets and pie charts? I work as a data analyst. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills for my one-bedroom apartment in the city. It's fine, Derek. Just the usual. What's up?" I knew there had to be a reason for the call. We didn't do casual check-ins. He launched into a rapid-fire explanation. He and his wife, Pam, had booked a non-refundable luxury couples retreat in the Berkshires. It was a big deal, an anniversary present to themselves. The problem was their regular sitter, a college student who lived down the street, had come down with a bad case of mono and had to bail. Pam's mother, who usually helped out, was on a cruise in Alaska and unreachable. They were desperate. "I know it's a lot to ask, and it's short notice," he'd said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But we're willing to pay you, of course. Handsomely. Say, $2,000 for the weekend? Just Friday night to Sunday evening. It would be a huge help. $2,000 for a weekend. That was more than a week's pay for me. It would cover the remainder of my student loan payment for the year and leave enough for a nice little cushion in my savings." My mind immediately started calculating. My weekend plans consisted of a stack of library books, a new documentary on streaming, and maybe a solo hike if the weather was nice. It was a lot of money to give up for solitude. "The kids are great," Derek had continued, sensing my hesitation. "Lily is 10 now, super independent. She'll probably just be on her tablet the whole time. And Max is 7, a real sweetheart. They're easy. You just have to be a warm body in the house. Make sure they don't burn it down, and heat up the frozen pizzas Pam has stocked. It'll be a paid vacation for you, too." The word easy was a hook. Easy money for easy work. I told him I'd do it. We agreed on the terms, the dates, and the amount. He said he'd text me the address. He and Pam had moved to a nicer suburb a year ago, a house I'd only seen in photos on my mom's Facebook page, and all the necessary details. The text never came. I figured he was busy with last-minute packing, so I didn't push. On Friday afternoon, I packed a small bag, got directions from my GPS, and made the hour-long drive to their neighborhood, a sprawling development of identical-looking houses with manicured lawns and 2 SUVs in every driveway. Their house was at the end of a cul-de-sac, a large modern farmhouse with a wraparound porch and a swing that looked like it had never been used. Derek answered the door before I could even knock. He was already dressed in smart casual weekend attire, a crisp polo shirt and chinos, a small wheeled suitcase by his feet. Pam was behind him in the hall, fussing with her purse, a cloud of expensive perfume wafting towards me. "Right on time," Derek said, his smile wide but not quite reaching his eyes. He pulled me into a quick, one-arm hug that felt more like a restraint. Come in. We're just about to head out." Pam grabbed the list. Pam, a woman with a perpetually worried expression and highlighted hair, scurried over and thrust a piece of paper into my hand. It wasn't a note. It was a document, a typed, single-spaced document that looked like it had been drafted by a lawyer. Here's the rundown. Pam said, her voice a little breathy. It's all very simple, really. Simple. The word was a cruel joke. The list was broken down into sections. House rules. No shoes in the house. Slippers are to be worn at all times on the second floor. Slippers were not provided for me. Thermostat is not to be touched. It is set to a precise 71 degrees. Any deviation disrupts the system's efficiency. All lights must be turned off when leaving a room. This includes the under-cabinet lighting in the kitchen, which Pam's interior designer insisted upon. The security system must be armed at all times when the house is occupied. The code is on the fridge. Do not open windows or doors while the system is armed, or it will trigger a police response. It has happened twice. Children's schedule. 7 a.m., wake up. No, earlier. They have okay-to-wake clocks. If they wake earlier, they must remain in their rooms until 7 o'clock. This was underlined twice. 7 to 7:30 a.m., breakfast. Options are listed. Pre-portioned frozen waffles. Toaster only, not the oven. Specific brand of cereal with 2% milk, no other milk. Or yogurt tubes, only the strawberry flavor, which is in the left side fridge drawer, third shelf down. Plates and utensils are in specific cabinets. Do not use the good dishes. 7:30 to 8 a.m., get dressed. Clothes are pre-selected and laid out on their dressers. Do not allow them to choose their own outfits. 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., screen time is prohibited. This is for their brain development. Activities are listed. Educational worksheets in the office, second drawer of the filing cabinet. Quiet reading books are on the lower shelves of the library, organized by reading level, or imaginative play in the backyard. Only if the UV index is below 5, which can be checked on the weather app, and they must wear SPF 50 sunscreen, which is in the mudroom, in a basket labeled Summer Gear. 12 p.m., lunch. See approved lunch items on page 2. Absolutely no negotiating. 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. Quiet time/rest. Lily must be in her room, door closed. Max must be on his bed. No noise. 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Afternoon enrichment. This could be a pre-approved documentary, list provided, a craft from the art cart in the basement. All materials must be inventoried and put back exactly, or a walk around the block, route mapped on a separate sheet. I am required to hold both their hands while crossing any street. 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. Free play, within the parameters of the house rules. 5:30 p.m. Dinner. Options are on page 3. All meals must be eaten at the dining room table. No phones, tablets, or television. Conversation is encouraged. A list of conversation starter cards is in a jar on the kitchen island. 7 p.m. Bath/shower. Specific shampoos, conditioners, and soaps are to be used. Hair washing for Lily requires a specific detangling spray in the bathroom cabinet behind the mirror. Teeth brushing must be supervised and timed for 2 minutes. 7:45 p.m. Story time. Books are pre-selected and on Lily's nightstand for her to read to me, and on Max's nightstand for me to read to him. 8:15 p.m. Lights out. No exceptions. The baby monitor, yes, for a 7 and 10-year-old. And the hallway must be on, and the parent unit must be with me at all times. The list went on. It included a do not feed list of the kids' sugar processed snacks, anything with red dye, a list of emergency contacts that included their pediatrician, the poison control center, the vet for their cat, which I had forgotten existed, and the contact information for 2 neighbors who were on standby but not to be bothered unless the house is on fire. It also mentioned the payment. Compensation to be discussed upon our return. We value family help immensely. To be discussed? I looked up from the paper, my head spinning. Derek, you said $2,000. He was already picking up his suitcase. Oh, that? Yeah, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Your family will take care of you. The important thing is the kids' routine. Stick to it, and everything will be fine. He gave me a pat on the shoulder that was meant to be reassuring, but felt more like a dismissal. Pam kissed the top of Lily's head, then Max's, murmuring instructions I couldn't hear. Within 60 seconds, they were in their SUV, backing out a driveway, and I was standing in their pristine, silent living room, holding a 6-page manual for my own life for the next 48 hours, holding a piece of paper that just turned a simple, paid favor into a nightmarish, unpaid internship in extreme parenting. I turned to look at Lily and Max, who were standing side by side in the hallway, staring at me with the same wide-eyed, assessing look they might give a new, slightly disappointing pet. Lily, with her mother's worried brow, and Max, who was clutching a stuffed dinosaur and sucking his thumb. So, I said, trying for a cheerful tone, who wants to break some rules and order a pizza? Lily's eyes widened in horror. Mommy says pizza delivery men are strangers, and we don't let strangers know where we live when we're alone. Max pulled his thumb out of his mouth. And we can't have pizza. It's a sometimes food, and this isn't a sometimes day. Right. So, it was going to be a long weekend. The first 24 hours were a masterclass in anxiety. I felt like I was defusing a bomb every time I had to prepare a meal or suggest an activity. At 10 a.m. on Saturday, during the sacred educational worksheet time, the home phone rang. It was Pam. Just checking in, she chirped. Is everything going according to the schedule? I glanced at the clock. They're doing their worksheets. Excellent. Lily, is Lily using her pencil grip? The ergonomic one? It should be in her pencil case. I hadn't even noticed the pencil case. I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my back. Yep, she's got it. And Max, is he sitting up straight? Slouching is terrible for his developing spine. I looked over at Max, who was, in fact, slumped over his worksheet like a tiny, deflated accountant. Working on it, I said, giving him a nudge. Great. Well, we're having the most wonderful time. The facilitator is amazing. We're doing a trust fall exercise later. I'll call again before their bath. Remember the detangling spray. She hung up, and I felt like I just completed an oral exam. The constant surveillance, the endless rules, the pressure of upholding their bizarre, rigid system. It was exhausting. And underlying it all was the gnawing feeling that I was doing this for free. To be discussed. What was there to discuss? We'd already discussed it. He'd promised me $2,000. By Sunday morning, the resentment was a hard knot in my stomach. The kids, while not unruly, were completely dependent on the schedule. Any deviation from the printed word was met with genuine distress. Max started crying when I couldn't find the correct purple plate for his toast. Lily had a minor meltdown because the conversation starter card I pulled for lunch was one they'd already done on Friday. I felt less like an aunt and more like a poorly trained, underpaid substitute teacher in a gilded prison. When Derek and Pam finally pulled into the driveway at 6 p.m. on Sunday, looking tanned, relaxed, and annoyingly happy, I was a bundle of frayed nerves. I had the kids packed up and ready, their overnight bags by the door. The house returned to its original, sterile state of perfection. Derek breathes in, dropping his suitcase. Hey, how'd it go? Any fires to put out? It went fine. I said, my voice tighter than I intended. We stuck to the schedule. Mostly. But Derek, we need to talk about the payment. Pam, who'd been cooing over the kids, stiffened slightly. Derek's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before snapping back into place. Right, the payment. Listen, let's sit down for a sec. We sat in their pristine living room, the one with the no sitting on the white sofas rule that was, of course, not listed but was apparently understood. I was perched on the edge of an ottoman. So, Derek began, leaning back, the picture of magnanimity. We've been thinking. You did a great job. The kids seem happy. The house is in one piece. Thank you for that. I nodded, waiting for the but, he said, and there it was. Here's the thing. $2,000 for 2 days is a lot of money. That's more than some people make in a month. And when we thought about it, we realized that this is what family does. We help each other out. You're their aunt. This wasn't a business transaction. It was a chance for you to bond with them, to be a part of their lives in a meaningful way. I stared at him, my jaw slowly unclenching in disbelief. Derek, you called me because you were desperate. Your sitter bailed. You offered me $2,000. I agreed based on that. I turned down other things to be here. Pam chimed in, her voice soft and placating. We know, and we really appreciate it. We do, but we think of it more as an investment in family. Think of the memories you made. That's worth more than money. And with the cost of the retreat and the new patio furniture we just financed, things are a little tight right now. We were hoping you'd understand. Consider it your birthday and Christmas present for the year. An early one. My birthday was in June. It was currently October. My Christmas presents from them for the past 5 years have been a generic gift basket from a big box store. I don't need memories, I said, my voice starting to shake with anger. I need to pay my student loans. I have bills. You made a promise, a financial promise. You can't just decide it was a family favor after the fact because you don't want to pay up. Derek's face hardened. The friendly mask slipped, and for a moment, I saw the same dismissive older brother from my childhood, the one who would steal the last piece of cake and then tell me I was being selfish for wanting it. Look, you're being unreasonable. We're not going to fight about this. The money isn't happening. You did a nice thing for your family. End of story. If you're going to be materialistic about it, then that's on you. We're not having this conversation. He stood up, effectively ending the discussion. Pam gave me a sympathetic, helpless shrug, as if her hands were tied. I was dismissed. I walked out of their house in a daze, got in my car, and drove home. The $2,000 I had mentally allocated, the financial relief I had been counting on, was gone. It had been erased by a casual wave of their hand and a lecture on the true meaning of family. For 2 days I stewed. I replayed the conversation in my head, each time getting angrier. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the principle. It was about being used, being lied to, and then being gaslit into feeling like the bad guy for expecting to be paid for service I had explicitly agreed to provide for set fee. The memory of that 6-page list, the constant, anxious calls from Pam, the rigid, joyless weekend I'd endured for their relaxing retreat, it all burned. And then an idea started to form. It was petty. It was nuclear. It was probably going to blow up my relationship with my parents and the rest of my family. But the more I thought about it, the more right it felt. Derek had a public image to maintain. He was a successful real estate agent, always posting photos of closed deals and community charity events on his social media. His whole identity was wrapped up in being a family man, a success story, a pillar of the community. His social media was a carefully curated highlight reel of barbecues, kids' soccer games, and smiling family portraits. So, I decided to give his followers a glimpse behind the curtain. I didn't call the authorities like the person in the story I'd once read. That wasn't my angle. The kids were fed and housed, just managed by insane rules. My weapon was the truth. I spent an hour crafting a post for a local community Facebook group, a group where Derek often posted his real estate listings, a group full of his potential clients, his neighbors, his acquaintances. I laid it all out just as it happened. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. I wrote about the last-minute call, the promised payment of $2,000. I wrote about the 6-page, single-spaced list of rules. I attached a photo of it, blurring out the kids' names but leaving the absurd details perfectly legible. The UV index checks, the pre-selected clothes, the conversation starter cards, the threat of police for opening a window. I wrote about the constant check-in calls from Pam, the pressure maintaining their fragile domestic ecosystem, and then the final conversation where they were negged on the payment, calling a family favor and my Christmas present. I ended the post with a simple question. AITA for expecting to be paid for a job I was promised payment for, and for now feeling like my family's definition of love is just a tool to get free labor? I hit post, my heart hammering against my ribs. I expected maybe a few comments, a little bit of support. I did not expect what happened next. Within an hour, the post had exploded. It was shared hundreds of times. The comments section was a dumpster fire of judgment, but almost all of it was directed at Derek and Pam. People were outraged. Other parents called the schedule insane and controlling. People who knew Derek commented on his hypocrisy, his carefully crafted image. A woman who identified herself as a former client said she was rethinking her home purchase with him. Another person commented that they lived in the same neighborhood and had seen the kids never playing outside, just being shuttled from activity to activity. Derek must have been alerted by a friend, because within 2 hours, my phone started blowing up, first with a text from him. Take it down. Now, we can talk about this. Then my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was a frantic, high-pitched plea. Honey, what have you done? Your brother is devastated. People are calling him. This is a family matter. You need to take that post down and apologize. This is going to ruin him. My dad called next. His message was shorter, colder. You've made a huge mistake. We're very disappointed in you. Call us. I didn't call. I didn't take the post down. I watched as the number of shares climbed into the thousands. The local news page for our area even shared a screenshot of the post with the headline, Local Real Estate Agent's Babysitting Contract Goes Viral. It was a feeding frenzy. The next morning, my phone dinged with a notification from my banking app. A direct deposit from Derek for $2,000. There was no message, no note, just the money. I took a screenshot of the deposit and added it to the original post with a simple update. Payment received. The truth still stands. That's when the real fallout began. My parents officially cut me off. My mom sent a long, rambling email about how I had destroyed the family and shown my true colors, and that they could not associate with someone so cruel and vindictive. My dad sent a one-line text. You are dead to us. I was blocked on all social media and their phones. Derek and Pam went silent on their public profiles for a few weeks. When they returned, the curated family photos were gone, replaced by generic real estate posts. I heard through a cousin that Pam was seeing a therapist for the anxiety caused by the public shaming. The cousin's tone suggested she was parroting Pam's own words, but I could hear the faintest hint of skepticism. But here's the thing about setting a fire. You can't control what it burns. A few weeks after the post went viral, I got a call from a woman I didn't know. She identified herself as a social worker from the state's Child Protective Services equivalent. She said they had received several anonymous tips regarding the post, specifically concerning the rigid schedule, the lack of free play, and the overall controlling environment described for children Lily and Max. They were opening an inquiry. My stomach dropped. This I hadn't intended. The kids. I had been so focused on Derek, on the injustice, on the money, that I hadn't fully considered the potential for this kind of external consequence. I answered the social worker's questions honestly, describing the weekend, the list, the constant monitoring. I reiterated that the kids hadn't seemed physically abused, just managed, constrained. I felt a pang of guilt. Had I gone too far? The investigation took 2 months. I was interviewed twice more. My parents, of course, refused to speak to me, so I have no idea what they told the social worker. Derek and Pam lawyered up. I heard, but the evidence was a list. That 6-page manifesto of control. It was a document written in their own words, a blueprint of their parenting philosophy, and it was now a part of an official record. The final outcome was a compromise. The state didn't remove the children. There was no evidence of abuse or neglect in the traditional sense, but they did issue a series of mandates. Derek and Pam were required to attend parenting classes focused on age-appropriate expectations and child autonomy. They were assigned a family counselor who would make monthly home visits for the next year. And, most significantly, the court-ordered arrangement that had the kids with them full-time was amended. A judge, reviewing the case, decided it was in the best interest of the children to have more balance. The custody schedule was adjusted so that Lily and Max would now spend every other weekend and 1 full month in the summer with Pam's mother, the one who had been on the cruise, the woman who I later learned had been systematically pushed out of their lives by Derek and Pam because she didn't follow the rules. I got this information from my cousin, the one who had called about Pam's therapist. She was the only family member who still spoke to me, a fellow black sheep who appreciated my willingness to burn bridges. She told me that Pam was furious, that she cried constantly, that she blamed me entirely for losing control of her children's schedule. Derek, she said, had lost at least 3 major real estate listings after the post went viral. Clients didn't want to work with someone whose personal life was such a public mess. And my parents? They remained silent. They had chosen their son, their golden child, and his wife. I was the villain who had exposed the rot in the family foundation. It's been 6 months now. The anger I felt has cooled into something harder, more solid. It's not forgiveness, and it's not quite peace. It's a kind of resigned clarity. I see things as they are. My parent love was always conditional on maintaining the illusion, on playing the part. Derek's offer was never a genuine request for help. It was a transaction where he always intended to change the terms in his favor, expecting me to accept it because I was family. I don't miss the late-night calls that never came, or the forced, awkward holiday gatherings. I miss the idea of a family. Maybe the one I see in commercials, but not the reality of mine. Last week, I got a letter. It was from Lily. It must have been sent without her parents' knowledge. The envelope had my name and address in her wobbly, 10-year-old handwriting. Inside was a single piece of lined paper with a drawing on it. It was a crude sketch of 3 stick figures holding hands. One was tall, with glasses like mine, labeled Annie. One was a girl with long hair, labeled me. And one was a smaller boy with a dinosaur in his hand, labeled Max. Underneath, she had written, "Thank you for the weekend. We had fun when you let us pick the movie. It was the best. Love, Lily." I stared at it for a long time. The best weekend, she said. We had watched a nature documentary, one that wasn't on the pre-approved list, and she and Max had huddled on the sofa with me, asking questions and giggling at the funny-looking birds. It was a tiny, insignificant rebellion, but for them, it was a memory of freedom. I put the drawing on my fridge. It's the only family photo I have now. And looking at those 3 crooked stick figures, I don't feel guilty anymore. I don't feel like the villain. I feel like the one who finally told the truth. And in doing so, maybe, just maybe, gave 2 little kids a tiny bit of space they needed to just be kids. It cost me my family, but I think, in the end, It was a fair price.